Magmaw Heroic is one of the first bosses in Blackwing Descent, but is generally the 7th boss done in 10-man progression. This is because Magmaw is a difficult gear check, one that a good strategy can only minimally help to overcome. We suggest using 2 tanks, 3 healers and 5 DPS for this fight, with at least 3 DPS able to AoE. For this guide, we assume that you are both familiar with 10-man normal and that you also do not intend to use a kite strat with a DK. While this strat is viable and arguably easier in Phase 1, we find that the extra 20% DPS on the boss in Phase 2 makes using a kite strat less attractive even if a DK is available, which is often not the case for 10-man guilds. Magma Spit and Lava Spew now hit significantly harder. Magma Spit will deal 40,000 damage and still be thrown out as Magmaw is spewing, meaning that a player hit with Spit who receives insufficient healing will die in around 3 seconds. This requires you to plan raid healing and raid walls effectively. In Heroic, Nefarian adds 2 new abilities to the Magmaw encounter. Firstly, Blazing Inferno, which appears as circles on the ground similar in appearance to Pillar of Flame. These circles will be hit by a meteor 3 seconds after appearing, causing an AoE knockdown to anyone within 8 yards and spawning a blazing bone construct, along with fire around the impact point that will move back and forth for 40 seconds before despawning. The raid needs to give the place where the meteor hits a good deal of clearance. The fire ticks extremely hard. The blazing bone constructs have 1.8 million health and do moderate tank damage. They do not have any form of frontal cleave. Their fiery slash ability is just additional tank damage. At 20%, these adds will begin channeling an ability called Armageddon, which after 8 seconds will deal 120,000 fire damage to your raid. These adds need to die before the channel finishes, which is not difficult. Killing these adds along with the parasites will take up the majority of your DPS's time, and is why the fight is considered a gear check. These adds spawn once every 30 seconds, even when the head is down, and having more than 2 up for long will often result in a tank death. While the Mangle debuff that Magmaw puts on the tank is certainly dangerous, given that 2 adds are up for the majority of the fight, we suggest not doing tank swaps. The physical damage on the off tank will be comparable to the damage on the main tank, so the swap will provide minimal advantage. The Pillar of Flame that is spawned by Magmaw releases the same number of parasites, now with 150,000 health each. Blast Wave, Shadow Fury, Frost Traps, Typhoon, Chillblains and other blanket stuns and slow effects are all helpful on the parasites. For our kill, we used a Destro's Lock Shadow Fury, a Fire Mage's Blast Wave and a Typhoon to kill the parasites without difficulty. Setting up a predetermined group to AoE the adds and how you'll slow and control them is essential. Having your range group stack up is very helpful for Magmaw. While this will require everyone to move when the pillars come, causing all the parasites to move in the same direction is essential to kiting them quickly, and Resto Shamans and Holy Paladins will do more effective healing on a stacked up group. You should be able to kill 3 bone constructs before the first head phase. Have your tank hold the 4th add after your raid takes it to 60% and then switches back to Magmaw. Your 2 raiders assigned to chains need to be extra quick to get onto Magmaw. If they aren't, an extra spew will go off, taking additional mana from the strained healers. Once the head is down, it's your goal to get Magmaw as close to 70% as possible. Have your off tank hold the add within cleave range and switch to the head, being sure not to push it low enough to risk Armageddon while the head is down. With the damage you did before the first add spawned, hitting 70% on Magmaw should not be difficult, and if you cannot meet this DPS wall, your composition should be reconsidered for this fight. After the head phase, Magmaw will immediately spew and the fight continues as before. If you find your melee getting hit before your tank has time to taunt, the easiest fix is to have them step out of melee range 1 second before the head reappears. They'll be switching to the adds immediately anyways. You now have 2 adds up, and your DPS will need to work hard to get them down quickly. Your DPS should be capable of killing 3 adds before the second head phase. Losing a few seconds off the head is worth it to finish the 3rd add, especially if it's close to Armageddon. After the second head phase, you'll have 2 adds with a lot of health still. This time around, you'll only kill 2 adds before the head phase. Your DPS mark to reach during the 3rd head phase is 35%. Getting the boss to this mark will allow you to bring him down to 31% right before the 4th head phase, which is essential to completing Phase 2. In Phase 2, Nefarian will stop spawning blazing constructs, and will instead start using a new ability called Shadow Breath. He will shoot out 2 of these per second, each dealing 20,000 damage with an 8-yard splash, requiring your raid to spread out well. This damage combined with spew and magma spit is very intense. Timing raid walls and cooldowns for this phase is essential, as is minimising the time in Phase 2. Phase 2 triggers when Magmaw reaches 30%. This fact is essential to the encounter, because while Magmaw and his exposed head share health, Magmaw's health does not actually change while you DPS the head. Instead, it drops down once the head phase is over. This means that if you take the exposed head below 30%, Phase 2 doesn't start until the head phase is over. This is how you reduce the time you spend in Phase 2. A raid group with hero attacking the head during execute range will easily manage to at least 20% of the boss's health. If you successfully brought Magmaw to 31%, this means that you will only have around 10% of the boss's health to take down in Phase 2. Ignore the 2 blazing bone constructs and have your off-tank pick up the parasites and focus solely on finishing the boss. Every single cooldown should be used at this moment. Your off-tank will be taking immense damage and will die without a perfect cooldown rotation. Every raid member should use their health stone during the spew that happens immediately. The fight will end shortly after its completion. If you find yourself lacking the DPS to get Magmaw to 31% before the 4th head phase, consider waiting for the 5th. While this will strain healer's mana and put you dangerously close to the enraged timer, it is still manageable, though not recommended. Overall, Magmaw is significantly more difficult than all the other bosses in Blackwind Descent, barring Nefarian himself. Be prepared to spend some time on this boss and maximise your raid DPS and healing capability. Good luck and check out our site at availedguild.com for more guides and information on our guild.